Hi friends, today's topic is, can India overtake China in terms of economy? No one has a specific answer to this question. However, in future, anyone can overtake China. But to me, likelihood, either it is India or Russia can do it. Rest of the countries, they do not have so much resources for this particular purpose. And about this topic I am going to deliver in three parts. The first part would be economic status of both India and China in past and the present as well. The second part of the topic I would like to discuss is the why India lagged behind China in terms of economic development, or why China moved ahead. And the third and the final part would be, can India catch up with China? So three parts. Now let us move ahead with the first part. First part I would do it point wise, one by one. Otherwise it takes more time. India and China were richest country globally till 18th century, end of 18th century. They together produced almost half of the global economy during 17th to 18th century. And competition was also there in between the two only. Tough economic competition was marked between the two during this period. And at this time, they had competition neck to neck. Each of them made all efforts to move ahead of others. This was the situation. However, thereafter, declining started. And by 1950, both of them melted down till 4 to 5% of their separate GDP. So this is all about the economic status of both India and China together. Now, if we take India alone into account, what is India's contribution? It would be surprising. India alone had produced almost 25 to 35% of global economy, that too consistently for 1800 years, from 1st century till the end of 18th century. This is a glorified record of India alone in the whole world. No country dominated so much for 1800 years. Anyway, even India was richer than China till the end of 1990, just around 30 to 35 years back. That had happened. Then China grew up much faster than India. If true, then what is the economic status of China today? It is almost 6 times ahead of India. Imagine, too much. This is the time when China marked with economic miracle. This is the worldwide known economic miracle of China. As regard overall GDP, nominal GDP, India stands at 3.2 trillion, whereas China stands at too high, $18 trillion. Then, forest reserve, India stands at $550 billion, and China, $3.2 trillion. Huge difference is there between the two. Then as regards the global position, China is the second richest country in the world in terms of GDP, just after America. And India stands at 5th position. This is as per nominal GDP position. Now as regards PPP term is concerned, PPP means the purchasing power parity. Here, position of both improved. China stands at number 1 position, even better than America, and India stands at number 3 position. So this is the reality. Now here is the end of the first part of the topic. Till here one thing is clear, that India lagged behind China in terms of economic development. But the question still remains that why India lagged behind? What are the factors responsible for lagging India behind of China? This is very important. Unless we know the reason, then how can we go for the improvement? Let us hear 4-5 points are there, the reason behind India lagging from China. First is partisan. India was also partisan, China was also almost at the same time. India due to Pakistan and China due to Taiwan. That happened almost all time. So both of them suffered due to partisan, but India suffered much more than China. Even today, the wounds of partisan is yet to be healed up in Kashmir. This is very pathetic history of both of them. This is all about the first point. The second factor which led India lagging behind China is that unlike India, China was not a non-alignment country. So China had all the advantages by getting alignment with either of the superpowers. Initially, China was aligned with Soviet Union from 1949 to 1969. Then thereafter shifted and had gone to America. So both the superpower had proved to be the godfather for China, had given all the resources, all the help to China to grow up. And this advantage India did not have. The third point is that India was imposed as many as 4 wars. That China never fought 4 wars in the whole of the history. Then that India has to fight at 2 fronts at a time, Pakistan and China. And initially both the adversaries are equipped with nuclear weapons. It's a very serious position. Then the next factor is that India is almost 20 years behind China in terms of bringing reforms, economic reforms. China had done it in 1977 and India did it in 1991 to 1964. So here is the difference between the two. Then India delayed almost 10 years in exercising nuclear option. The two half-hearted. China did it in 1964, India did it in 1974. So again India had to do it because it was half-hearted. Do it again in 1998. The two India allowed Pakistan to catch it up. So all are disadvantaged, not only delayed, technically also it was wrong on the part of India. Then differences between the two on concept of globalization. When the globalization came at the end of 20th century, then both taken into 2 different ways. India preferred to be getting imports and China insisted on export. Here is the difference. Therefore, China is the master of exports in the whole of world. Maximum exporting country in the whole world is China only. So is the difference. Now, as regards the lagging behind of India is concerned, another factor is that India did not develop proper supply chain. Supply chain means road was not developed, electricity was not developed, water port, airport was not developed. All these development are not even done by now. Here the major factor that big company did not come to India. They preferred to go to China because China had done everything. And next one is, unlike China, India even now does not have the permanent seat in the UN Security Council. China did it initially only. And ideologically, both stand at the 2 different extremes. Mao Zedong, the father of modern China, he believed in the revolution comes out of barrel of guns. Nehru, on the other hand, believed in peaceful coexistence. Here is also a difference, and that made finally the result in different result in between the two. So all this is about the second part of the topic. Now let's see the final part. Final part is that can India catch up with China in terms of economic development? Here are the two conflicting perceptions. The first perception is a negative one, other one is the positive one. As regards the negative one is concerned, they have given some arguments. The first is that for India it is almost impossible to overtake China because the two huge gap is there. As I said earlier, that India stands at 3.2 billion and 3.2 trillion overall economic GDP strength, and China stands at 18. It's too huge. So on this basis, they argue that this is not possible for India to overtake China, at least in near future. The second point they put forward is that India itself is having a serious problem. How it can overtake China? Unprecedented inflation and unemployment. And of course, corruption is a permanent problem. Then, third point they put forward is that forex reserves. This is a pressure on India because forex reserves is reducing very fast. India has to pay more amount to the imported goods because goods price all over the world have gone up due to war in Ukraine. So India has spent almost $80 billion more amount just within 7 months. India had at that time $650 billion as a reserve. Now it has come down to $550 billion. Moreover, every week India is using around $2 to $2.6070 billion. So imagine how much pressure is there on India. India hardly has $550 billion, whereas China has $3.2 trillion. How India can overtake? Now, India's growth has gone down due to COVID. As a result, pressure is there on the budget. How much money we have to adjust? Amount is limited, expenditure is much more. Tension is also there due to standoff on border by Chinese in Ladakh. And geopolitical games are also played against India all around. So this is the tension for India. China is sitting on the high seat. Then, deficit trade. India is alone paying more amount on imported items to China. Around $100 billion India is giving to China. And how much getting in export? Hardly $12 to $15 billion. So huge difference is there between import and the exports. So this is very difficult to make it up. Then rupee is much weaker day by day in parity with the dollars. And interest rate is also very fast increasing. Result is bank is getting much more pressure. All these things are there. All these arguments given by the negative perception. Now positive perception, what is their argument? They say, if China can make it, why not India? If China can grow up so much, India can also do it. What is their argument? They say, yes, when China was growing since last 40 years, and the result is there before us, then during that time also India was not sleeping. India was also growing fast. Since last around 10 years, India has been growing up 7 to 10% of GDP every year. Even fastest in the world. Faster than China too. Yes, China is ahead, no doubt. But India is also not far behind. If India can do it here, India can go ahead also. Then also India jumped her position, jumped up. India was earlier sixth most developed economy of the world. Now it has overtaken Britain, England, and got fifth position. Who prevent India? Who can prevent India? India is presuming after 4 or 5 years can take over third position also, just behind China and America. This is the reality. The next point they put forward is that economic miracle does no geographical boundary. If your economic miracle happens in China, that can happen anywhere, including India also. It does not go according to geographical limit. And as regards action is concerned, India has already started taking action for ending Chinese monopoly. India has recently approved $10 billion for production of what? Chips production in semiconductor industry. India has earmarked the $10 billion to the industry to produce chips. India is the monopolist. Not only India, America has also started to end Chinese monopoly, and America has allotted around $53 billion. Vietnam is also trying it. Indonesia is also trying it. So all together are making efforts to ensure that the end of China, at least as a monopoly. Then, Atmanirbhar Bharat already launched. This is also a point. Then, if India can overtake China during 17th, 18th century, India can do it now also. This is the dreams, may be true. Then the further argument is that India's own self-confidence, whatever India has done so far, it is on its own merit, as I said earlier, not because of mehrwani or mercy of anyone. So the self-confidence in India is much higher. And finally, China is climbing down very fast from very top and peak. And India is not climbing down. India is growing up, though slowly and steadily. Therefore, let us see who wins, the hare or the tortoise. China getting down from the top height. Can China stop it getting down? Or if India is growing slowly, India will continue to grow up in future too. If at all it happens, then nobody can stop India to go up. This is the end of my video. Thank you very much to each and every one of you.